I'd like to talk about rhythm a little bit. This is just an approach that I use when I'm teaching. I think it's very, very helpful. I think it really simplifies matters. So, what I've seen over the years is that, violinists and pianists who have rhythm, challenges, it's usually because they are not keeping a beat. Okay. Anytime you play something, you always have to have that, and it's usually I say like in my back, right? Or like in my stomach, in here, somewhere in the very core of your being. I usually joke and I say, like I want a giant Q-tip so that I can pound the beat into the back of my students. I really literally want to pound the rhythm into them, okay? That's the feeling that you want to have. That constant boom, boom, boom. So before you begin, you want to like kind of scan the music and decide what should your heartbeat be. Okay, now it's very simple. Like when you go to a concert, like a music concert, you probably kind of like, moving your body to the beat or something, right? Or your foot starts to tap and you kind of start moving. That is the beat. It's very simple. We humanly naturally find the pulse, to music that we're listening to. It's just that usually when you're trying to figure out a rhythm, you don't know what the music sounds like, so you're like looking at this paper with black marks on it and you're going like, I have no idea what this is supposed to sound like. So that's why it's challenging. But once you have a little bit of an idea, you're going to naturally, hopefully like kind of start feeling that pulse inside. So unfortunately, you have to manufacture it yourself in the beginning until you start to kind of see what this music is about. So I guess I'm kind of talking about sight reading and also learning a new, piece. Like you have a new concerto and you have to start practicing it. So sometimes early days is challenging, like first week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, until you get all the, nuts and bolts learned. So I usually just scan it and decide what my pulse should be. So like maybe it'll be quarter notes. So every quarter note I'm going to feel boom, boom, boom. So the quarter notes are going like this. So that's my pulse and my beat. And then if I see like other rhythms like 16th notes, eighth notes, half notes, dotted notes, right? Then those have to fit within the framework, right, of this. Okay, so that's the concept. So now once you understand that, then all you have to do is you look at the music, right? And then you find where the pulses are going to actually land, right? So I'll show you kind of a demonstration of like an example where you can just kind of look at, a section of the piece and you figure out where all your pulses land, right? And then when you see something really scary or complicated, right, a hard rhythm, if you know where the pulses land, then you can kind of guess where all the other, notes fit in, right? And even if you don't understand it, you have kind of a, general idea. The other thing you want to do is implement this idea of relativity, is what I call it. Every rhythm, right, rhythmic value is basically like a fraction, right? A quarter note is like one over one. It's like a one whole number. The half notes are two, right? An eighth note would be like a fraction of a half, 1/2, right? Half. So, or it'd be 0.5 in decimal. So I really see music and rhythms as fractions and decimals or whatever. Fractions and ratios to me are a bit more approachable. That's the way that I conceptualize it in my head. And so when you see, for example, a dotted quarter note and that kind of stresses you out, you don't really know what to do. But then you see an eighth note, you just know that at least this one needs to be longer than this one, right? So that's what I call like relativity. If you see two notes, right, and you don't really know how they sound, at least make the long one longer and the short one shorter. Does that make sense? So once you do that and you kind of know where all your pulses land, actually, you're almost there. Most of the work has already been done. It's just that you have to get used to this concept, be patient, and do it very, kind of with a bit more thought. I think a lot of times Rhythms is kind of like math, like you just feel overwhelmed and you just tell yourself you're not good at it and then you just don't bother. So I see a little bit of anxiety and I see a lot of laziness. I'm sorry, but it's true. I see a lot of laziness and a bit of anxiety, and then you just keep telling yourself that, you're not good at it and you can't do it. But I beg to differ. All right, so I've seen a lot of my students really do really well with rhythms, whereas they were, struggling with it before. And they even do better and better with sight reading rhythms, which is very difficult if you're not rhythmically inclined. So I'll show you a bit of an example now, and then hopefully that will give you some tools. Here, I'm sorry it's the piano part. I'm sure it looks a little more confusing, but just look at the violin part right here. So we have 4 beats per measure. Quarter note gets the beat, right? So the first pulse will go here, 1, 2, and then there's the third pulse and the fourth pulse, right? 1, 2, 3, 4. So I'm just marking where all my quarter notes will go, right here, 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 here. And then I'll show you a different section as well. So now I know if I just tap it, it's going to go here, 1, 2, 3, then this note comes in, then there, and then I hold it for here, and then this note comes in, and then here. You see, if I just keep this steady, okay? So at least you kind of have an expectation of where the notes will go, right? So it's going to go 1, 2, and then dun, 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 dun. Okay, so that's how that would go. Now, clearly, right, this is a much longer note, and then these are, quicker notes. So these are all what I call pizzas. So it's like Pete, that's the silent one. Pizza, pizza. Same here. Pizza, pizza. I like the word pizza because it fits really well with the quarter note pulse. Pizza, 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 like that. Okay, let's get to something a bit more complicated like this. A lot of my students kind of freak out with this one. So here, I know there's 4 beats per measure. You could even check off this one. See, that's the 4th beat. That one's obvious. First beat, that one's obvious is a quarter note, so the next beat has to go there. And then if you just look at the beaming, usually, not always, but usually the beaming shows you where the beats are. So this is going to be the 3rd one. So you see, beat 1, 2, 3, 4. Same here, 1, 2, and then the 3 and the 4 goes into there. So do you see how that one would work? So ties are tricky, I know, depending on what level you're at, and also grace notes. So grace notes, you can just ignore them. They can always be put back into your playing later. They don't have to be addressed right now. Okay, so what I'm seeing is, here's the beats, right? It's going to go here, 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 like that. So this is quite long, can you tell, right? And then so on. This is the same exact, almost the same exact thing as this one. So then I can imagine, bum, I have to wait a tiny bit, bum, da 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 dun, da dun, da dun, 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 dun. This is longer than this one, so I shouldn't play these two equal. I should wait a little bit, dun. But right before this beat comes, boom, I should sneak this note in. So dun, dun, dun. Do you see? And then this one's still going dun, dun. This one, if you can think of, here's the beat. 6 of them have to fit in one beat. So you think 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, or 3 and 3. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Or I like to say pineapple. Pineapple, 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 pineapple. I know the tie is tricky, but for now you can just ignore the tie. Bum, 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 da dun, da da dum, da dum, dun, dun, dun. Now this one's tricky, but if you imagine that all this tricky stuff is not here, and instead, if you take away the fluff, right, you could imagine there's a 16th note here, like 4 16th notes. And we already know this whole thing is worth 1/4 note. So putting here instead 4 16th notes would be like an equal swap. Okay, so now if you think about 16th notes, then you can compare this to a 16th note and you would know that this guy is longer and this guy's shorter. That guy's longer, that guy's shorter. So if you imagine pepperoni, pepperoni, that's the word I use for 16ths. So then you can go longer on the first one and the third one. So instead of 1 2 3 4 1 2 3 4 1 2 3 4 1 2 3 4 long short long short long short long short. So just by guesstimating and using my theory of like relativity, making long ones longer, short ones shorter, then it works really well. And just make sure you really be patient here. Done. The words I would use here are I have silly words. If you've watched my other rhythm videos, I have some silly words for the basic rhythms I see over and over, in life. But there are some trickier ones. If they're tricky, you could just say ta. Okay. Here I'm going to use pineapple. And here I'll just say ta. And then these are pizzas. That's a purple. Purple to who? Blue, pineapple, pineapple, ta, 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 pizza, pizza, purple to who? This is the only tricky part, right? I think all the other words are easy. Blue, these are miniature pineapples. Usually they're not that quick. So I'm doing 2 mini pineapples here. And then you could just say ta here. These are all pizzas. That's a purple. That's a to who? Blue, pineapple, pineapple, ta, 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 pizza, pizza, purple to who? Okay, I'll just say ta the whole time, and I'll include the tie this time, okay? Ta, 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 ta.